Says it takes a minute. Uh-oh, now I've lost you. Okay, I believe we are live. Welcome to Spark Expert Chats, everybody. We've changed our format and we hope you like it. I'm Rachel Marks, your network coordinator, and I'm joining you today from what is currently referred to as Leeds and Grenville County, but is the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and Algonquin peoples. This area is covered under the Crawford Purchase of 1783. As an immigrant to Canada, I am in awe of the beauty of this country and all that has been done by the traditional caretakers of the land to maintain the delicate balance of ecosystems on the land, in the water, and in the air. My hope is that we can learn from those who cared for the land before us so that we can continue that work with the honesty, love, and wisdom that has been shown by the original peoples. Today, we have the privilege of joining you virtually and using technology that is steeped in the colonial mindset and that continues to marginalize Indigenous communities around the province. The need for better access to internet and technology in our Indigenous communities is ongoing and something we should all take a moment to consider and try to assist in bringing about. So as I said, I'm Rachel, your network coordinator, and I am joined tonight by Brett Christopher. Brett has been an active member of the Canadian theatre community since graduating from George Brown Theatre School in 2001. Celebrated as both an actor and a director, he's worked with a variety of theatre companies, including the Stratford Festival, Vancouver's Arts Club, Port Hope Festival, the Actors Repertory Company, Convergence Theatre, and of course, the Thousand Islands Playhouse. He was the recipient of both the Mass and Mecca Awards for his solo show, I Am My Own Wife, at the Seagull Centre in Montreal. Sorry, his performance of the solo show. His direction of The Tempest by Barry's Theatre by the Bay was named one of the country's top productions by Robert Cushman of the National Post. Brett has worked in an administrative capacity for a number of theatre organizations, including Buddies in Bad Times, Actors Repertory Company, and Theatre Kingston, where he founded the Storefront Fringe Festival. He's currently the managing artistic director of the Thousand Islands Playhouse in nearby Gananoque. Hi, Brett.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. So I just was wondering if you could start us off this evening by telling us a little bit about the Thousand Islands Playhouse.
Sure, absolutely. The Thousand Islands Playhouse is, as Rachel said, is in Gananoque, Ontario, which is about 25 minutes east of Kingston, about 3.5 hours east of Toronto, and about 3.5 hours west of Montreal. It's perfectly situated right in the middle. It has been around, this is going to be our 40th year as an organization, as a company producing theater in a waterfront venue, which is what is very unique about this, this particular producing company, is that it owns and operates a 400-seat theater on the banks of the St. Lawrence River. You can literally pull your boat up to the dock and walk on in. Docks are very expensive, by the way. Something I didn't anticipate when I took over a company that happened to be waterfront. We also have another venue that is next door, which is the Refurbished Fire Hall, previously the Armory, that is a 150-seat black box space. So we have these two spaces that we operate in, and they actually really represent the two, let's say, personae of the company. The company is a regional theater that happens to operate in the summertime, and the breadth of programming ranges from big scale musicals like Anne of Green Gables and Music Man and things like that, down to plays that you'd find, I would suggest, in a more perhaps urban setting. Like last season, we did Asking for It and Boy in the Moon, and productions that you would find in the smaller, sort of edgier theaters in Toronto or Montreal, which is what makes that particular company so unique. So we do 8 shows a year and a whole variety of educational and engagement programs, even more this year, since we weren't making plays. And that's basically it. That's sort of the breadth of it. And again, there's been so many different pieces to it. One of the particular projects that I'm fond of is our Young Company Tour, which is a a touring company that travels through April to June every year to between 60 and 80 schools in Eastern Ontario, many of whom are in very small communities that have zero other live performance that come to their particular location. So, for many kids, it's their first time experiencing live performance, and certainly the only thing that comes into their school gymnasium in any given year. So it's a project that I'm very fond of, and one that I as things get wiled away during the pandemic, it's the one that I kind of cling to as one of the most impactful. And in fact, it's probably the show that is seen by most people. So it's very, very dear to my heart. And in terms of sort of a rural conversation, something that I think is very important in terms of access to live performance.
Yeah, I
Kind of
actually,
it in a nutshell.
that's great. Thank you. I want to agree with you on the Young Company. I've had the opportunity to, in a previous job, to book 2 shows through them for children with autism and their families. And what a great experience it was for us. Like, the company was fantastic. They were great with the kids, and the show was great. And we got to see something that normally those audience may not get to see. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that too. And Boy and the Moon was my favorite show.
I'm glad I said
it. So thank you. Okay, well, so you didn't have a season in 2020 though, right? Like the rest of us. How were you guys impacted?
Well, we announced, normally we announce in October. So in October 2019, I announced this sort of mega season, as I was kind of referring to. We had a couple of really successful years. So of course, the ego builds and we go, we can do even more and even more and even more. It's the nature of artists. And so we planned this huge season and launched it, and everyone was very excited, and we were selling tickets. And then, as the rest of the world did, we came to a bit of a screeching halt in mid-March 2020. At that point, we had sold almost $500,000 worth of tickets. So that was the sort of issue with the company of that size, is the fact that you're kind of pre-holding this wad of cash, for lack of a better term, and the sort of refunds are on the horizon as you start to look at the trajectory of the virus and the conversations, and refreshing CBC every day or every 10 minutes to try to figure out what's going on and how this is going to impact us in real time. We, to be honest, I won't kind of dwell on the pandemic too much, but the way that I think we turned left when many other companies turned right was our board, like, bless them, and I will cite them several times probably in this conversation. Our board determined, I went to them and asked them basically to keep all of the full-time staff on instead of doing layoffs, despite the fact that we started to cancel shows or suspend seasons, and things started to, our core producing raison d'etre started to fall away. I said, if only to show the loyalty that they have shown us for so many years, including members of our production teams that, are there to build the plays. That's what they do. I said, if only to show them the loyalty that they have shown us over the years, let us just provide them with employment during this time. And I don't know what that looks like in terms of tasks, but we'll figure it out, because we're artists, right? Creative solutions is our bread and butter. So we did that, and in doing so, I would suggest evolve the company in a way that we never ever would have imagined. That it was probably, I think it is a transformative moment for the organization. It was so much of our, I think you probably know, so much of our energy and our resource and our souls go into making these 8 plays every year, that when you take that away and put it down, and we all sort of looked at each other and said, like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. This is us. And then ideas started to percolate, and things started to occur within the organization that we had just never really had the time to devote ourselves to. So there was huge growth in educational programming. We did a whole bunch of online stuff. We've got a current program right now, this inquiry box, that is got 120 kids virtually learning and having been delivered this sort of box of magical tools to their front doorstep. And then we, did a whole bunch of work on anti-racism. We continue to do that work to really investigate our organization and how we can, provide better services to artists of color, how we can bring more artists of color and people of color into the fold, and just create better art, right? Broaden the scope of the storytelling that we do, and in doing so, build better art. And that's one of the big projects that is ongoing, of course. And we did a whole bunch of community stuff. The first thing we did, I think it was kind of the hallmark of our success. It's kind of weird to talk about the pandemic in terms of success, but I think one of the first decisions we made was, let's just put everything down and just get on the phone. And that was, in March. Let's just put everything down, pause the company, and let's just start calling people. We know a lot of people that come to the company, like a lot of the people that come to the shows are older, like I'm sure many people who run companies that are members of Spark. So we just started calling a lot of seniors, a lot of women who had lost their husbands. We just started calling people and saying, do you need anything? Can we provide resource? For no other reason other than, as I said with the employees, to repay loyalty. For 40 years, people have been subscribing to our productions. For 40 years, they have been cheering on our shows and coming up and down the hill and, looking out over the St. Lawrence from the docks and whatever else that they do when they're on site, if only to just repay that loyalty. And it was amazing, the conversations we had, even, like a lot of people were just lonely that have been sitting in their house for a month by themselves. And so I think that was kind of the beginning of an opening of our eyes of what impact the company could have beyond just come see our shows. And so, we just sort of went down this road of community support, and we turned the Fire Hall Theater into I'm just rambling now. We turned the Fire Hall Theater into a farmer's market, right? The farmer's market had lost their venue because the town couldn't provide it in the town park. And so we created a contactless curbside pickup situation for them. So we had 25 farmers, local farmers, delivering all of their stuff every Thursday. Everyone would order online and then delivering it curbside through the door of the theater. Like, just trying to find creative ways to be a community member and to boost community morale. We launched an outdoor music festival. We did movies in the parking lot. We delivered candy at Halloween. We did crafts at Christmas, etc. It was a wild year, very wild year.
That's amazing. And I know too, you did a take a coat, leave a coat kind of thing in the winter, where people could get winter clothing and boots and stuff at the theater as well, which was amazing.
That was, I think, one of the ways we were trying to conceive our own relationship to the community was as a bridge, so that there are people in the region, obviously, that have, and there are people that have not. And so how can we actually create, as an organization, just create the bridge between those two groups? And, simplistically, it was, we collected 23,000 pieces of candy at Halloween, and then we delivered to 400 kids bags of candy. Like, that is a very simple way of doing it, right? So the other one, as you cited, was the Salvation Army closed down in Gananoque, leaving a major hole in affordable winter clothing and affordable clothing just generally in that region. And so we said, well, this is a major gap right now this year when so many people have lost their jobs. We need to address this as an organization. You can hear that there's no theater anywhere in this, right? It's sort of like we just put theater away for a little bit. We collected, in the end, we collected 400 winter coats, and it was kind of overwhelming. And then we just put out a huge coat rack in front of the theater and said, just come take whatever you want. Like, no questions asked, just take whatever you want. And then we also worked with Lionhearts and other Just for Success and other local organizations because we just had so many coats. We could only give so many away at the front of the theater. So to work with them to figure out how to distribute them to people in need in the region. So it was just very exciting to do all these projects. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what a way, like, we all know regional theater and rural and remote theater, we are steeped in our community, right? And like you said, I mean, I know I've ushered at TIP, and I've driven those patrons up and down that hill, and they love coming to the theater, and you have such a loyal group of supporters. So I'm going to get back to that in a minute, but if you will, I would love to share your season release video with everyone. So this might be a little bit bumpy, folks, because I am new to this, but here we go. Oh, wrong. Oh, hold on a second. I did it wrong again. I'm so sorry. I need this screen up. So I got to close that and do this all over again. See, there we
That guy.
go.
This season, we've made the health and safety of our artists, staff, and you, the audience, our top priority. Let's go through what your visit will look like with us this summer. When you arrive at the Fire Hall Theatre, please be sure to put your mask on. It'll be worn for the duration of your visit. Follow the arrows and the signage to the host at the entrance of our new outdoor lobby under a large open-air tent. To limit contact, we will not be using printed tickets this year. Instead, the host will check you in using our online box office system. We will complete a COVID-19 pre-screening assessment either prior to your arrival, or we will be happy to take you through the assessment when you arrive on site. When you're checked in, you'll sanitize your hands and make your way to the designated waiting table, where you can relax and enjoy table service from our outdoor bar. When it's time to enter the theater, the host will call guests by seating section. Follow the arrows and signage into the building and sanitize your hands. You can then use this opportunity to use the washrooms and dispose of your drinks. An usher will guide you to your seats. As you can see, the auditorium will have a maximum capacity of 50 seats that have been socially distanced in pairs. During the show, we ask that you please stay seated and that your mask be kept on. Please note that every play this season has either been selected or tailored to suit a one-act experience, meaning that there will be no intermissions. Once the play has ended, ushers will help guide you safely out of the theater. We're ready, and we look forward to seeing you.
Okay, I love that. I love the
Catchy
video.
tune, eh?
I know. Reminded me of my younger days. so let's get right into it. Like this is why we're here. Like,
Yeah.
How did it feel to move forward with a 2021 season?
I'll be honest, I was terrified that day. That day we announced. Now I had been prepping for about 2-3 months. Like from about January 1st onwards, I was like, this all in retrospect seems kind of weird, but I've been sort of prepping for the trajectory of the vaccines to overtake the trajectory of the virus. Mm-hmm. And under the assumption that by July, like we had pushed the start date of the company, the season to July from, what we would normally do mid to late May, that by that point we'd be in really good shape, and that anybody who normally comes to the theater, 60, 65 plus would be vaccinated, which is probably, maybe true, maybe not. But at that point I was like, this is where things are headed. And so I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to pull this off. And, again, because all of our staff were on board, I actually just assigned 2 staff, one of whom, Susie Allen, is our head of facilities, operations manager, who runs all of our facilities, and Dirk Ave, who's our production manager. And the 2 of them, team presentation, as we called it, just went off and did research for about 2 months. And then did modeling. What would it look like if we did plays in the parking lot? What would it look like if we did plays in the park down the street? What would it look like, if we were in the big theater? What would it look like in the small theater? Like, how are we going to accomplish this? And then slowly but surely, this viable plan emerged for actually returning, not just making plays outdoors, but actually returning into the venue, which is, for us, would just be the absolute highlight. It was one of those things where I'm notoriously stubborn, and I'm also notoriously anti-status quo, which is pretty arts oriented, right? We're kind of non-status quo type people. And so I just said, we're going to fight. This year, we got to fight. Last year, we threw in the towel, but this year we're fighting because there's a lot of artists out there who need hope. There's a lot of audiences for who this place is an incredibly important part of their lives. It's not just buying a ticket, come to the show, right? It is a thing that they do every 3 weeks for 8 months of the year for 40 years. And to lose it again would be a huge loss. So we just started to fight. And that was, the model that we came up with. What you saw there was, a video that we shot just to allay some of the concerns that people would have. Of course, the first question is like, how are you going to keep me safe? The second question is, are there refunds? Because I want to buy with some sort of insurance policy in place that I'm not going to, this may or may not happen. So I want some insurance policy. And of course, the third was, what are the plays? That's the irony, is every other year it's about like, what are the plays? This year it was like, what are the safety protocols? Are you taking this seriously, right? That was what it was. Are you taking this huge issue seriously? Because if I can trust you, then I feel that I can return safely. So that's pretty much what it was. It was very exciting to launch, very nerve-wracking, because I thought, oh my gosh, we are throwing something out there into the world that could look like we are tone deaf and look like we are, ignorant to the pandemic, or that we are putting our wonderful, loyal audience in harm's way, our wonderful artists in harm's way. So it was really about presenting the fact that this research had been done, that these plans were set, but also malleable, which is sort of where we're at now, right? Is looking back at those plans and going, okay, all right, flexibility. This is what it's all about.
And did you deal with the local health unit when you were making the plans? Is that something that was part of the process for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, the health unit provides all of the information,
Great.
right? All of their sort of restrictions and their suggestions and all of that work. So we collected all of that information, and that was only sort of a piece of it, because of course we have to think of it from three different perspectives. We have to think of it of the perspective of artists actually making the work. How are they actually going to safely be in a rehearsal hall, or how are we going to make these plays happen? The second piece is we have staff and volunteers that are going to need to work on site together to make these plays able to be presented. And the third, of course, the granddaddy of them all, is this audience. How are we going to bring this audience, especially people who are seniors, how are we going to bring them back safely into this environment? So those are three big plans. Each one is, a 10 to 12 page document that outlines piece by piece, step by step, PPE by PPE, how these things can actually take place. And we, of course, we shared that with the health unit. We made sure the health center, public health unit is right, to make sure that they were on board, to make sure that we hadn't missed anything. We were collecting research, international research, especially from places like Australia and even London now, that are a little bit ahead of us in terms of live performance and returning to the theaters. How is it going? What things do they have in place? How are audiences reacting to these decisions of returning? So like collecting all of that information, because in Canada it's quite limited, right? The work that's happening right now in Canada is over digital means or audio plays. There's very little presentation that is actually in a live setting, even outdoors.
Yeah. And I'm kind of jumping ahead of our conversation a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
How did the audience, how did your loyal audience react when you announced the season?
Well, I've actually retold this story many times, because I find myself in packed meetings, with all of the summer theaters. We meet, once a month, or summer. What are we? We're in Region 4, which is all the theaters in Ontario outside the GTA. So we'll sit down as the leaders of those organizations. Now we sit over Zoom and sort of say, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you hearing? What's happening? Or just like, woe is me, I'm desperate, I don't know what to do, or we don't have any money, or whatever the challenges are. And I've found myself saying to them, guess what? The day we launched, so that was April 6th. So we launched March 23rd, but April 6th was the day that subscriptions went on sale. April 6th is the #1 biggest selling day in my 4 years with the Thousand Islands Playhouse.
Wow.
Yeah, almost double other days. Yeah, it was wild. It was, sitting in my office with every single phone ringing off the hook, and kind of going like, what are they saying? Are they saying they hate me? Like, what are they saying? But of course, everyone was just so excited. And, like, I think that was one of the things I really wanted to share with other artistic directors and with other leaders of organizations, to say the audience is there. It is a spring that is just waiting to be unsprung. They're all there. They're all eager to come back. They all love you. They love the work that you do. They're so excited to be back in these facilities watching these works. They're an integral part of their lives, So that's kind of, it has been so heartening to receive messages, to show them, I think, that we are willing to fight for them to get these plays in place. One of the things that I reflect on from the 2020 year is, like I said, we had, I think, $400 and some odd thousand in ticket sales, and the bulk of that was actually returned to us as donation. As we contacted people, we said, like, we never do refunds. It's not, part of our box office mandate, but we will refund anything. And instead, people started to say, no. I want to support the organization. Like, keep your ticket money, keep it. So that was incredible, of course. So it allowed us to keep our staff on. It allowed us to keep moving forward. It allowed us to not worry about the present day, but to continue the sort of momentum of the organization. Having said that, I think with that came, in me anyway, a reason to fight. So I said, all of these people have said, like, we believe in you. We know that you guys, as an organization, have something that we believe in. We love the plays. We love the organization. Fight for us. And so that is, like, that kind of rang through my head every time I was planning for the season, sort of thinking, I owe it to all these people who've contributed this money to not throw in the towel again. I need to fight. And, maybe I will get knocked out, TKO or whatever, but it's worth it. To me, it's absolutely worth it.
That's amazing. And okay, so Gananoque, for people who don't know, it's the gateway of the Thousand Islands. It's a huge tourist industry and community in the summer. And how have the townspeople responded to the fact that you're going to be bringing in audiences this summer?
I mean, so I'll speak to the second half first, and then the first half second. From a marketing perspective, and you saw in that video, we only have 50 seats a night. Normally, if both theaters are humming, we have 600 seats a night. So just the sheer inventory of opportunity is significantly reduced. So that means we don't actually have to push our message, as we normally do, out towards the urban centers like Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto. We can actually keep it very regional. And that's been great. And most of our subscribers, frankly, are regional. So we really have just sort of said, like, our marketing bubble went from this and going like, love us Toronto, love us Ottawa, like, please come to our theater. We're like, forget that. We're only going to talk to our dedicated audience that is very regional. So in doing so, to your point, we're not trying to lure people, especially from hotspots, into a region that is quite, knock on wood, quite low in terms of COVID numbers. The other piece is, how did the community respond to our decision to move forward? Similar to thinking about the artists and giving artists hope and giving audiences, that sort of passionate, we, your organization, will fight to see this season happen. The third, of course, was local businesses. Yeah. And local businesses are it is a very seasonal economy in our region, in this region. And a lot of those restaurants, the restaurant business has been extremely tough through the pandemic, as has been hospitality, like accommodations. So if only to give them too something to hope for, that, even if it's only 50 people coming and experiencing the play every night, the bulk of those people, especially now, will go out to dinner. They will go to the bookstore. They will stay in the hotels and the B&Bs. They will experience the location, the local businesses, because they're just so happy for something to do, right? For something to go out. So, the response from the community, from the chamber, and from the BIA has been extremely positive. And they're, again, very excited that we are willing to fight to have people in this little community. It's the Playhouse, speaking to the sort of rural side of things, these companies, these theaters that are in these small towns are integral to the economy. It's not just like a theater in downtown Toronto where people go, and if it was there or didn't there, wouldn't really impact a significant part of the economy. But in these rural communities, they're integral. In our community, there is the casino, there's the Gananoque boat line, and there's the Thousand Islands Playhouse. And if you lose 1, 2, or 3 of those, casino's been closed for, I don't even know how long, months. The boat line is at very limited capacity. And so we owe it to our community to be present so that they can just sell stuff, so that they can have some little bit of season in the summer to last them through the fall and winter.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So, okay, I know we saw the video, but
yes.
Can you take us through the Colvid protocols a little? And even I think some of our members and folks watching, and don't forget, guys, you can put questions in the comment box. Krista Dalby is feeding those to us, so feel free to do that. But I think what might be interesting is knowing, how are you rehearsing?
Yeah. The good thing about the professional universe is that we rehearse in good and bad. We rehearse in very sort of intense, short periods of time. So we're not rehearsing yet. The first production, it's funny because I now, of course, have meetings every day about this. The first production is actually the Young Company tour, which is not a tour. It's actually being distributed online directly into classrooms this year. So it is to go into rehearsal May 31st. And the stay-at-home order ends May 21st, or at least is currently to end May 21st. So we're sort of, sitting there waiting for the next shoe to drop in order to make the next decision. In theory, as it goes, especially because people are coming from urban centers to come and work at the theater, many do. So they are to be tested 2 weeks prior at home, and then they are tested on arrival in GAN. And then they are quarantined in a hotel or in a sort of dedicated accommodation only for them until they receive that negative test. Now we're working on rapid testing right now so that we don't have to do that. At that point, they will move into a dedicated accommodation that is for their entire cohort. So if you're in a play of 4 actors and a director and a stage manager, your entire cohort is living in a single accommodation, and you actually become a family. That is going to be your family. The challenge, of course, for artists who are from out of region is that they will not be able to go home on their day off. They actually have to stay within the region. So it's basically like you are in your own bubble for the length of the contract in order to keep them safe, in order to allow them to be able to work with their masks off in the rehearsal hall. Then they move, of course, into the rehearsal hall. There are a whole bunch of measures in the rehearsal hall. If they're singing, obviously there's going to be plexi if they're singing in the hall. And the rehearsal hall is a closed hall. Usually we'll have a lot of production team members coming and going in terms of costumes or the sets, et cetera, et cetera. It's absolutely closed hall. No one else is allowed in there. And production team has their own bubble, and the admin staff has their own bubble. So normally everything is done virtually in terms of production meetings or any sort of piece of putting this play together. And again, all the designers usually come into town for the length of the rehearsal process, or most of the rehearsal process. But at this point, they're literally just coming for the week prior. They'll have their own dedicated accommodation, and then they'll just work virtually in sound designing, lighting designing, or ensuring that the set was built to the appropriate specification. So there's a lot of kind of restrictions on the artistic process, but the goal was to create a box, a safe box, in which they could make art as kind of as normal a process as possible, so that they're in the hall and they're excited to be in that, in that hall together, making the play.
That's awesome. So we have a question from our viewers. And
great.
I'm curious how the economics work with such limited opportunities for earned revenue.
No. What? What are you talking about? No, we're charging $700 a ticket. No, it's one of the decisions, and I mentioned the board. So one of the things, as I was building, of course, budgets with this in mind, and as a company, we usually, our budget is about 60% earned revenue, and 20% public funding and 20% private donations, corporate sponsorships and stuff. At this point, we are looking at a budget that is 12% earned revenue. So the brilliant question, of course, is correct. Like, where is the rest of that money coming from? Of course, the budget is significantly limited. Normally, we have about a $2.6 million budget, and this year we're down to about 1.4. So just the sheer number of productions and the size of productions that we're doing. But a lot of the funding is coming through programs like the federal wage subsidy, rent subsidy, a lot of public funding opportunities, Ontario Small Business Grant. So a lot of the public funding has been driven. If you've seen a grant application or opportunity out there, we've probably got an application in. Like, we're sort of, what about this? What about this? What about digital? What about this? Trying to kind of get that public funding in place so that we don't suffer too big a loss. But I did go to the board with the budget, and I did say, this is a budget that is planned to lose $190,000. So the last 4 years we've made a surplus. I am asking you, and last year a surplus based on the donations that were made. So I'm asking you to basically take those surpluses and spend them this year in order to achieve the goals that are non-economic, which is, providing hope to the community, pulling the sector back into its venues, providing hope to small businesses, all of these things that I've mentioned. And they, without hesitation, unanimously, as we sort of went through all the numbers, they unanimously voted that was a good choice. And then they basically said, like, do you see in years to come that you'll be able to make that money back? And I said, sure, why not? Sure. Anyway, it was a huge moment, I think, for us as an organization to be, and for the board of directors to look at the goal of the organization not to make money. It is to provide morale boost to a community and to a sector, and to play a role in kind of leading the sector back into its venues.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You had mentioned digital for the young company. Is there any digital aspect to the rest of your season?
Yes. So one of the big decisions we made in order to accomplish the season was to provide it in a hybrid model, so that there is this live, in-person performance, what we normally do. And we decided to provide a digital option. So many companies have gone or recently went to a live stream or streamed model for their distribution, especially plays that were sort of already in the hopper. They went, okay, we'll pivot to digital distribution as opposed to in-person. And I sort of thought to myself, a lot of our audience is going to be too nervous to come back, but they love coming to the theater. They love it, right? They don't want to miss a season. We're presenting a season. They're going to miss it. So let's, at least for them, provide them with an option to see these plays from their own couch. So we, with some funding from the OAC, actually purchased a whole bunch. Yeah, amazing. Again, like I said, if there's public funding opportunity out there, we've probably applied for it.
That's awesome.
To fit out the fire hall into a digital studio. So with lighting and cameras and the switcher, and to create a sort of 3-camera studio. And each of the productions will be recorded with a sort of live stream option, and then distributed 4 times over the course of the run digitally. So people can actually purchase a live stream or a streamed subscription versus an in-person subscription. And many people have, Yeah, I'm actually shocked at how many people have purchased it that way.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks say, like, oh, are people ready for more digital? So
yeah,
it's exciting to hear you say that, because clearly some people are.
I know. I'm actually still not quite sure, because all of the research that I've been reading has indicated that people are either tired of digital or they just don't want to pay for it, right? I have Netflix for $14 a month. Why would I pay $20 to see one production from Thousand Islands Playhouse? Good question. So it really was, we're going to do this in order to provide people with the shows, as opposed to we're going to do this to make a whole new revenue stream. In the end, it's actually been far more successful in terms of sales than I ever thought. And of course, now that we're kind of deep, waist deep, hip deep, I don't know what we are in the third wave, we might find ourselves like with digital distribution as our option. So this is what we've been looking at currently, of course, and I won't sort of skip ahead, but I won't give you the secret, but guess what? There's a third wave, and it's looking less likely like we'll go into rehearsal in June. So how do we accomplish that? And maybe it's just making the plays either later in the year or doing it just digitally, not bringing the audience in. That's still to be determined. Options are still there.
That's great. And I think I read somewhere on the website that refunds are just like, if you decide on the day of that I don't feel comfortable or I'm feeling a little under the weather, you can just ring up and get a refund. Is that true? Am I misreading?
Yeah, the actual it's not exactly that, but it was refunds up to 1 week prior to the performance. So and again, yes, no questions asked. Just call and say, I don't feel safe. I don't feel ready. Like I thought I would be ready, but you know what? It's August and I'm not ready. I don't feel ready to do this. So no questions asked. Just straight refund, no problem. The other piece was 1 week prior, and this is why, sort of to give us a window to be able to resell the ticket. 1 week prior will be a credit, and that's up to sort of, I think it's 3 hours prior to the performance. Of course, because we want people waking up, we don't want people waking up that day and going like, I don't feel great. It's similar to the paid sick days conversation. I don't feel great, but I've spent $40 on a theater ticket, so it's just a sniffly nose. It's not COVID. I'm not gonna. No, I'm just gonna go. Right, which is exactly what's happening with a lot of the essential workers. So not to get political about it, but I think in that way, it's providing some sort of out for people that they can call 3 hours before and say, I'm not ready. The flip side of that is, of course, other people see that policy and go, okay, I feel like they have put something in place so that if someone else is sick, they're not going to come, right? That there is this sort of double side of that. But we normally, like I said, we don't normally do refunds, but I think, of course, everything's on the table this year.
No, that's great. And I think that goes to, again, to show your your loyalty back to your patrons and your subscriber base, right?
Yeah.
Like, and frankly, it would give people peace of mind. Now, what if they say, I'm not feeling well, can I get a hybrid ticket? Are those types of things possible?
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, I'm not feeling well. I'd like to see one of the live streams or the streamed performances. Absolutely.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I ask this question because it was emailed to me.
Oh yeah.
And so it is, I would like to ask Brett, how do you become an artistic director? Or where's a good place to start so you can grow your skills to become one? That's a good question.
Great question. Great question. I took a non-traditional route, but generally, so in the past, I would say artistic directors have been drawn from the kind of directing cohort. People and directors drawn from either design or stage management, that sort of, or from performance. Now, I sort of took the performer to director to artistic director route, but artistic directors generally come from people who have worked across the country in terms of various directing gigs as an independent director, as a freelance director, and then want to settle down, want to settle down into one community and one company and really kind of dig in and work on not just sort of individual productions, but on sort of a wider scale. But I personally took a different route, which was I left Toronto. I was an actor and director in Toronto, and I'd worked in a lot of admin and companies like Buddies. And I just decided I didn't want to live. This is very timely. We're speaking with Spark, so it's like, this is very timely. This is right on message. I just didn't want to live in Toronto anymore, to be honest. And my wife and I moved to Kingston and took over a company in Kingston and built that up. And then Thousand Islands Playhouse came to me and said, can you come and bring kind of entrepreneurial spirit to this organization and see whether an organization that's been around for 35 years actually can be imbued with entrepreneurial, whatever that is. Frisson. Yeah, chutzpah is exactly it. What can you do with a company that's been around for 35 years? How can we kind of light it up? So, and then with the departure of the artistic director there, I actually took on, because of course I came from performing directing as opposed to management, I took on the artistic director mantle and folded it into the job. So I do kind of both the management and the artistic job. Yeah, that's a long answer.
No, that's great. I'm actually going to ask another question about that
Yeah,
because, a lot of our members are small companies and they do
yeah.
have the one person doing both jobs. So, in a company of Thousand Islands Playhouse size, did you
Mhm.
find that difficult to merge the two roles?
Yes, yes. It's there's pros and cons of everything. I would say the pros are that well, this is going to sound really egotistical, but the vision of the company is singular vision. So the company, I think, in that moment, really needed a single voice to drive the company forward to kind of whatever success. And the other piece of it is I surround myself with really, really strong staff who are a lot smarter than I am. I have no problem saying, and they really run the ship. They in each of their own spheres do incredible things, and I kind of just go, oh, what about? Oh, yeah, you've already thought of that. Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. That to me is the job of a good manager or a good leader, is to coach people along, but really just allow them to take flight when they are ready to take flight. And so I think the double role was tough. Artistic producer, I guess, is more my title is managing artistic director, so that the AD role is in there. Artistic producer is what I was with Theatre Kingston, which is a much smaller company. And I would argue that the model is changing towards what we do, because my generation of artists, so I'm 48, and my generation, and certainly the generation who's younger than me, has grown up self-producing. So they really understand not just I'm an artist, I'm a director, or I'm an actor, and that's all I understand. They actually have required, to do the fringe circuit, to do independent work, to build a company in their own community. They have been required to understand budgeting, marketing, contracting, all of these pieces that the traditional artist kind of goes like, yeah, it's not really my thing. I love making the play, I love making the piece of art. So I would say there'll be a lot more of it. I say that sort of double edged. And again, it's. I mean, one of my staff once said, and is a very smart comment, said, this role is fine, but as long as the artistic director sometimes is allowed to ignore the pragmatist, right? That pragmatist half of you is going to keep telling the dreamer to like tone it down, tone it down, tone it down. So I think that is always the challenge in that double role, is that the pragmatist can constantly be telling the dreamer like, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. And sometimes the dreamer has to go like, lock the pragmatist in the closet and let the dreamer just take flight. And in doing so, I think find where the organization can go, what new things you can do with art. And then the pragmatist comes in and figures out how to pay for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to remind everyone, we just have a few minutes left. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comment box. I just want to get back to, because we kind of got a little off track, which is fine because this is
What?
but you took us through everything the artists are doing and the designers and the directors. So talk to me about your front of house staff. Like what procedure is in place? Front of house, dear to my heart. What procedures in place for your front of house staff to help the audience into the theater and through their experience?
Great. So as you saw in that video, the lobby, there are a whole bunch of changes from like sort of the audience and front of house perspective. Normally, you come into the lobby, you congregate, you have a drink, you chat, you rub elbows, you get all like all of that stuff. That same with intermission, like, oh, well, wasn't that play great? Breathing and touching and all those things that are terrifying now, when you watch a movie and everyone's in close contact. So we've actually moved the lobby outdoors. We've created, you saw in that video, there's a 30 by 40 tent with open sides that will be there. Everyone will have dedicated spot to wait in that space. So front of house are turning more into serving staff, because of course there's no tickets to rip. There's a concierge. They're going to kill me for saying that, but there's a concierge who basically sits with a tablet at the front, and you come, Rachel, and you say, I booked a ticket. Great, that's your table over there. Somebody will come and ask you if you'd like a drink. If not, just hang out, and the theater will open at a certain time. The theater is separated into 3 sections. Instead of kind of just a free-for-all, the doors are open, come on in. It'll actually be in groups of 18. And so the first 18 will go in and they will be seated, and then the second 18, the third 18. And on the way, you'll have the opportunity to use the washroom. Literally every single piece of this is kind of planned out, including, you know, where the hand sanitizer is. And then the front of house staff are in various locations along that route, just to ensure that people keep their masks on, that people, you know where they're going, what the protocols are, just keeping people in the loop throughout. And then they'll watch the play. Again, all of the plays have been stripped of their intermission, for lack of a better term. Either I've selected plays that don't have an intermission naturally, or the 2 of the plays normally have an intermission, but they have been truncated somewhat by the playwrights to serve a 90-minute structure. So they might be a 2-hour structure, but they've been truncated to create 90 minutes. And with a play like Back in 59, which is heavily musical, you know, it's just kind of losing a few songs that were kind of excess anyway. So from there, people will leave the theater in, you know, as you would an airplane or church or anywhere else, you leave in an orderly fashion. Normally in the theater, we all just kind of jump up and bump around one another, and that's my coat, and I drop my program and all that stuff. But instead, we'll be going to the church manner of exiting the theater, which is in an orderly fashion, you know, closest to the door first, et cetera, going through it. So with all of these protocols in place, in front of house staff, again, we have a whole bunch of rapid testing kits that we're going to be bringing in to ensure that they have the opportunity to get rapid tested, to make sure that they have paid sick days if they find that they are sick prior to their shift. So all of these pieces are in place to make the place as safe as possible. Is it impenetrable? No, but it's as safe as possible. Right?
That's awesome. That's so great. I had a question that popped into my head while you were talking, and now it's gone. Oh no. Oh, it was about the shows. You haven't told us what the shows are this year.
It's never the part that people want to talk about. It's safety and refunds. So the 5 productions that we have organized for this year, one I've mentioned, The Young Company. So that is a new adaptation of a Josh Funk book called How to Code a Sandcastle, which is about a young girl learning how to use code to make the world's best sandcastle. And it's really celebrating a young Black girl who's learning STEM, and you know, and very sort of on the curriculum, whatever you call that curriculum, it's a part of the curriculum. And it is to be produced in June. So we're aiming for a June distribution, I should say, because it is going to have 20 live streamed performances. So right now we're selling it to teachers. It'll be live streamed onto smart boards in classrooms, and it'll actually be interactive. So there'll be an interactive feature where kids can actually ask questions through chat function or even through text. And the actors, similar to this, us talking together, the actors will respond after the show in real time. So they can actually say like, oh, hi, Rachel, how are you doing? You know, how's it with Aaron Leeds in Granville? Okay, your question is da-da-da-da-da, and this is the answer. So that there's, so it's not just a recording, because I think the interactivity part of TYA is extremely important. The 4 productions that are going to be in the Fire Hall, and they're basically July, August, September, October, are Miss Caledonia, which is a one-woman show about a young girl in southwestern Ontario who is, it's a true story, who wants to go to Hollywood, and the manner of doing that, lives on a farm, wants to go to Hollywood, but she wants to become Miss Caledonia, like win her local beauty pageant. She thinks that's the kind of path of success. It's a very funny play that Melody Johnson from Second City wrote in 2010 and toured it for many years. And so we have gotten the rights to it, and we're going to be building our own production. It's a very, very, very funny show. The second one is the sexy one is Sexy Laundry, which is Michelle Remmel's piece about a couple in their 50s, 25-year marriage, and she gets a sort of swanky hotel room to rekindle the light in their marriage. And what comes next is a very funny kind of tour through their marriage. You know, and a lot of things are said that have yet to be said in the relationship. Fantasies are revealed, and it ends. I have to say, it's like very funny. And I was reading, I'm like, oh, it's a very funny play and it's great, and I think people really enjoy it. But then it comes to this conclusion that is incredibly heartwarming, and it really celebrates relationships in such a wonderful way, and celebrates marriage and you know the length of time that we spend together with another person, which I thought was extremely appropriate in this time, since we're all with our spouses in these houses all the time. All the time. Third play is back in 59, as I mentioned. So there's very much a kind of jukebox show of hits from 59 to 69. And it's, you know, it's like every single song you recognize. I was actually amazed. I'm like, there are a lot of hits at that time. Many hits. And many that, you know, like every generation knows. I was reading the song list to my kids who are 15 and 13, and they knew every song as well. I'm like, it's something about the music of this era that just people, you know, that it's so recognizable. And the fourth show, which I'm really excited about, is a play that we actually developed starting in 2017 called Serving Elizabeth. And Serving Elizabeth is, so the basis of the show was Marcia Johnson, who's the playwright, watched The Crown, the first season of The Crown. And I think the second episode is the episode that's set in Kenya when Elizabeth finds out that her father has died, and I'm giving it away. Her father died, she became queen. So she watched that episode, and she's a royalist. I don't know if she's a royalist, but I'll say it. She loves the royals. And there are all of these Black actors in that episode, and none of them have a single line. So it's an episode that's set in Kenya that is about this incredible moment in history. And, you know, all of these actors are playing historical figures, and none of them have a single line. They're really just functional to create, you know, to put Elizabeth on this pedestal. So she thought to herself, okay, I'm going to investigate that actual moment in history, and then I'm going to kind of tell that in concert with the creation of a TV show about that moment, you know, the writing of The Crown. So, and in doing so, create this really interesting look at the way we tell history, you know, the way, you know, who tells history, and specifically in that sort of like that moment, the Kenyan people and how they were represented with Elizabeth and in the TV show and all of those sort of different pieces. It's an amazing play. We were to have premiered it last year. So it was to be a premiere, and the company that we co-produced with it actually showed it in Kamloops, and then it was coming to Gananoque, and then pandemic stopped it. So this is our shot. The interesting thing is Stratford reached out and said, hey, we love that Serving Elizabeth. Is there any way we could do it as well? So they're actually presenting it in their season at the same time as we're presenting it in our season. Two different productions of the same play, but very exciting for the company because it's a play that we developed from the ground up that is going to be on the stage at Stratford. So, you know, I love that. So this is the 5 shows, and again, you know, everything is flexible at this point. Not to tell tales out of school, because this is kind of like privileged artistic director information, but it's modular. The season is modular. Usually it's kind of one big chunk, you know, take it or leave it, but I built it so that none of the productions lean on the others. Everyone is built on its own. The cast is cohorted on its own. And so in doing that, it means that we can actually move them as modules. So if we're not allowed to produce theater in June, then we will move that show to October. If Miss Caledonia in July, if we're still not ready to allow people into our venue in July, then we may even move it into November. So that's the kind of nature of the world right now, right? That sort of the being flexible and resilient. And I think theater people are primed to be so.
That's awesome. I have one last question before we
Yeah,
wrap up.
Great.
And that is, like, the Playhouse is known for the amazing orchestrations and live music that goes with your musicals. How is your musical impacted this year? Is it going to be any different? Is it going to be recorded? Is it going to be live? The music.
I mean, it's quite a small show, so there's only 4 actors and a musical director, and the musical director plays live. She actually, oh no, it was she last year. It was he this year. He is going to actually play with track. So he plays the show live to track. They will be, because they're cohorted, they can actually, not in the current restrictions, but hopefully in October, they'll be able to sing together in the same space. But we have actually purchased a vinyl wall So like a flexible wall that will actually go around, it's a thrust configuration. So it'll actually go around the thrust. So when you're sitting in that space that you saw in the video, there will actually be a transparent curtain in between the performers and the audience. And doing so, right, prevent the singing from impacting people. Yeah. So again, just trying to figure out interesting and creative ways to produce the art that we love to produce.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. And I wish you the best of luck with the season. I will be there. I'm getting
Thank you.
single tickets are on sale now. So
Yep. Thank you.
Definitely coming out. Now, please bear with me, everybody, while I try and end the live stream, because I don't know how to do that. I think maybe I just press this button up here. Oh yeah. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you.